have some witnesses to introduce to us this evening.
Yes, we do.
Please do so.
We'd like to introduce Dylan Salerno, the plaintiff. We'd also like to introduce Logan Huntsberger and Dr. Alex Schwartz, an expert cardiologist.
Welcome. Good evening and welcome. Thank you. All right, very good. Thank you very much, counsel. Defense counsel?
Nicholas Henderson for the defense.
And Bonnie Gupta for the defense.
And do you have some witnesses to introduce to us?
Yes, Your Honor. On the left, we have Bailey Patel. In the middle, we have Dr. Jordan Scott. On the right, we have Sam Marina, the defendant. Or rather, left. Mine.
Very good. Thank you very much. Good evening and welcome. All right, counsel, are you ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, very good. So the plaintiff's counsel may commence your opening in one moment, just so you know, just so everyone is aware. I will be hearing the first part of this case, conducting the first part of this trial while plaintiff's case goes in, and then after plaintiff's case is in, Judge Prenti's going to take over. He will be conducting the second half of this trial. So with that, thank you very much, counsel. Plaintiff's counsel, you may commence with your opening statement.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon. My name is Alyssa Extew, and my partner, Ria Shenby, and I are the plaintiff attorneys representing Dylan Salerno. Unfortunately, on July 6, 2020, her grandchild, Rory Salerno, died while doing the Slam the Slaminate challenge with Sam Marina. And let's start from the very beginning. Rory was an intelligent child who behaved well in school. However, everything changed in his sophomore year of high school. As described by his grandmother, he began staying up late, coming home late, constantly being on his cell phone, talking back to his teachers, and talking back to his grandmother. And the reason for all these negative developments was because he was preoccupied with something else, making videos with Sam Marina. And Sam had always made Rory the butt of these jokes in his social media videos. Logan Huntsberger, Rory's childhood best friend, testifies to a video where Rory's phone is being set on fire, and Sam is laughing at him. And Dylan had to buy her grandchild a new cell phone without knowing the reason. While Rory was being made fun of, Sam was raking in the money, and he relied on this money for his living. And Sam knew he had this effect on Rory, the ability to inspire him to do any type of social media challenge. Sam gave him all his trust as a minor. Rory gave Sam all his trust as a minor, and Sam, as an adult, had the responsibility, at the very least, in return, to keep Rory safe. Yet, on that day, when Rory and Sam went to the park alone to do the Slam the Slaminate challenge, and it's quite a dangerous challenge, I might say, because the participant abuses the use of Slaminate and then tries to do strenuous physical activities. And the only incentive for such activities is for social media influencers to post these challenges and get more views and money. And Sam had already gotten an email recommending him not to do these dangerous challenges, and the label on Slaminate bottles say that the drink is full of caffeine, should not be used for children, and should be used in moderation. In addition, Rory was already sweating excessively and breathing heavily before the challenge even began. Despite all these red flags, Sam refused to recognize the potential consequences of his actions. If he had not encouraged Rory to drink the Slaminate, he could not have died, and the medical evidence will be proven by Dr. Alex Schwartz. In this case, it will be proven that Sam Marina was guilty of negligence, and this will be proven with 4 points. Firstly, duty. As the profiteer of the video, as the adult who had an unusual amount of influence over Rory, a minor, and as the only other person at the incident, he had a responsibility to keep Rory safe. Secondly, breach of duty. Clearly, Sam failed to keep Rory safe. And thirdly, causation. If Rory did not abuse the use of Slaminate that day, he could not have died with only his HOCM condition and exercising on a hot day. And lastly, damages. Clearly, the biggest thing lost in this case was Rory's life, and his grandmother, the plaintiff, deserves compensation for this. We will provide substantial evidence, the plaintiff's side, to prove that and that he committed negligence. We look forward to your judgment. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Ready to proceed? We will hear your opening.
The death of a child must be devastating for any parent, and the plaintiff has our condolences. It's understandable that they want to blame someone for this tragedy, but the evidence will show that the plaintiff is blaming the wrong party with this lawsuit against San Marino. Rory Salerno had a hereditary heart disease, something called hypertrophic obstructive cardiomyopathy. The evidence will show that Rory had been on a physical decline for quite some time prior to July 6, 2020. He quit playing soccer, basketball, and multiple witnesses from both sides of the case will testify to profuse sweating, shortness of breath, weight gain, and puffy, bloated skin. But tragically, everyone overlooked the symptoms. Nobody in Rory's life knew about the ticking time bomb in his chest. They might have known had the plaintiff responded differently to another tragedy, the death of Rory's father. Joseph Salerno was a fit and strong member of the U.S. Marine Corps, but when he unexpectedly collapsed and died in training one day, the plaintiff never requested an autopsy. Actually, you will hear evidence that an autopsy might have been conducted, but the plaintiff never requested any results. Medical experts tonight will explain how such an autopsy might have indicated how Rory had the same hereditary heart disease as his father. Would this have changed the way Rory lived his life? Tragically, we'll never get to know. We're not asking you to approve of childish videos with viral pranks and challenges. Like it or not, millions of people are drawn to such videos. Tonight, you will hear what the label on Slaminated energy drink reads, and hear that it is a far cry from a clear warning that drinking this product could lead to death. You will hear about the hundreds of other challenge videos doing the Slam This Lemonade challenge that went off without a hitch. Even when the beverage company reached out to influencers to stop doing the challenge, they failed to explain why, in any way, it might be dangerous. You will hear from two expert witnesses about the cause of death tonight. One will say that Slaminade played a role, and the other will not. Regardless of who you believe, it should have no impact on your decision in the case. The plaintiff wants you to believe that it was San Marino's action or inaction that was the cause for his grandson's death. They would have to convince you, with a preponderance of the evidence, that San Marino failed to execute a degree of care for Rory that a reasonably prudent person would have done under the same circumstances. You would have to conclude that an ordinary person would have foreseen the results of what happened on July 6, 2020. And perhaps, even more importantly, you would have to conclude that such action or inaction was the proximate cause for Rory's death. As you listen to the testimony and view the evidence tonight, ask yourself the following questions. Did anyone know that Rory had a pre-existing medical heart condition? Did the people closest to him who recognized his health decline do anything to protect him? Should San Marino have known that the Slam This Lemonade challenge could potentially have deadly consequences? We are confident that you will come to the inescapable conclusion that the answers to these questions are no, no, and no. As a consequence, on the question of negligence, your answer should be a crystal clear no. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please be seated, state your name, and spell your last name. Be seated. Yes, please.
Be seated. And please give us your name and spell your last name.
Dylan Salerno, Salerno.
Thank you very much. Counsel, your witness.
Thank you. Good evening, Mrs. Salerno. What is your relationship with Rory Salerno?
Rory is my grandson, and I've been acting as his legal guardian since 2007.
How did you come to be Rory's legal guardian?
Joseph, my son, he was a Marine, and he died on active duty. It turned out that during training, he was hit in the chest, which later led to his death.
I'm very sorry to hear that. And what happened to Rory's mother?
I never knew Rory's mother, but I do know that she died in a car crash when Rory was little.
Now, what was Rory like as a child?
Rory was a great child. He never caused me any trouble, and he was always so respectful. He also always kept up his grades, and he was a very active person. He was on the basketball and soccer team. I loved taking him to his practices and his games. I miss him so much.
Now, did Rory's excellent behavior continue into high school?
Well, like all teenagers, he did start to change. He stopped being as active as he once was. He quit the basketball and soccer team and joined the computer club, and he started hanging around a new group of people.
So who were Rory's friends as a child?
He was always best friends with Logan Hutzenberger, and he was a really great kid, so I never had to worry about anything when they were together. I really wish that they could have stayed friends during high school, but ever since it started, I would see less and less of Logan.
Now, how did Logan's relationship with Rory affect Rory?
Logan was a great kid and always had a positive influence on Rory. Whenever they were together, Logan would always look after Rory. I never had to worry about anything when they were together.
Now, you mentioned that Rory and Logan were no longer as close as they once were. Did Rory make any new friends during high school?
Yes, after joining the computer club, he started hanging around a new group of people, one of the main ones being Sam Morena.
Now, what activities did Rory and Sam do together?
They would make videos
And how often did Rory and Sam get together?
every day.
Now, could you please walk us through the events of July 6, 2020?
I was coming back from a vacation and I stopped at the convenience store where Rory worked, and I saw him at the desk and he was asleep. When I woke him up, he was so happy and he told me that after work at 2, he was going to meet up with some friends.
And who were these friends that Rory was meeting up with?
He told me he was meeting up with Logan, and I was so happy I didn't even ask about anybody else.
Now, while you were at the convenience store, were there any distinguishable physical characteristics that you happened to notice about Rory?
Yes, other than being tired, Rory was sweating profusely and was breathing really hard.
Now, where did Rory go after work?
He went to the park.
And what items, if any, did Rory bring with them?
A 6-pack of lemonade.
Now, did Rory drink lemonade often?
Yes, after meeting Sam, he would drink dozens of it per week. And after hanging out, he was always drinking it. It was like Sam was giving him an endless supply.
Now, what were the weather conditions like on July 6th?
It was extremely hot, probably the hottest day in the year.
Now, could you please elaborate on what the Slaminate challenge is?
Objection, Your Honor. This question calls for lack of personal knowledge.
Your Honor, this is an online challenge, and this is a challenge that my client's grandchild completed before their death. It is reasonable to believe that they have a degree of knowledge about this subject.
I hear you further, counsel.
Yes, Your Honor. It is not stipulated anywhere, it's not, the witness on the stand does not know about the challenge, as they have not mentioned it anywhere previously, and they also did mention that they didn't know what the challenge was until they did it. They didn't know the specifics of the challenge, I'm sorry.
All right, so I'm going to overrule the objection. I am going to allow the answer, and if the witness clarifies that she has knowledge of the challenge, she may do so. But we're going to hear the question and the answer. So the objection is overruled. Counsel, would you please repeat the question?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Mrs. Salerno, could you please elaborate on what the Slaminate challenge is?
The Slaminate challenge is a challenge where the kids would drink some Slaminate and do some kind of active challenge.
And when were you made aware of the fact that Rory had been taken to the hospital?
I was made aware when Rory was already in the ambulance, and I didn't get to show up to the hospital until my only grandson was pronounced dead.
Now, after you did arrive at the hospital, what medical conditions did Rory have that you were made aware of?
They told me that his heart rate was over 200, and he had a heart disease called HOCM.
Now, how has Rory's death affected you?
After my son's death, it was really hard on me, and it was probably the hardest day in my life, but I had to keep on pushing through it to take care of Rory and to make sure he could grow up to be a normal, successful adult. But now he's dead, and he never even got to become an adult. He wasn't even old enough to vote. He was still a minor, and I just really wish he was back here with me. Sorry.
If you need a minute to collect yourself, that's okay.
I'm very sorry to hear that, Mrs. Salerno. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Cross-examination.
I'm so sorry for your loss, Mrs. Salerno. Were you aware that your grandson had a hereditary heart condition?
I was not.
Rory's father was Joseph Salerno, do I have that right?
Yes.
He was a member of the U.S. Marine Corps.
Yes.
I thank you for your service. As a member of the U.S. Marine Corps, I imagine he was in great physical shape.
Yes.
He even ran marathons,
Yes.
but one day he unexpectedly collapsed and died. Is that right?
Yes, after getting hit in the chest during training.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Did you request an autopsy?
No.
Are there any drugs in his system?
No.
You didn't think to request an autopsy because you weren't sure if the Marines would have told you what they found, isn't that right?
No. What? They confirmed that he didn't have any drugs in his system, but I didn't ask for an autopsy because it was still really upsetting to me.
In your witness statement, you did describe that the reason that you didn't request an autopsy was the reason that you weren't sure if they would have told you what they found.
I'm
Right.
not sure if they would have told me, but
So that's a yes?
no, because it wasn't the reason I didn't ask. I just wasn't sure if they would have told me.
But you did say that in your witness statement, correct?
I didn't say that it was the reason I didn't ask them.
Your Honor, may I approach with the witness statement of
You certainly may, counsel.
Dylan Salerno? Do you recognize this document?
Yes.
Please follow along quietly as I read from lines 12 to 15. The Marines did tell me that they found no drugs in the system, but still did not conduct a full autopsy. Actually, they might have, but I'm not sure if they would have told me what they had found. Did I read that correctly?
Yes.
Thank you. So to confirm, you did not request any autopsy results or any results other than the drug test?
Yes.
Mrs. Salerno, isn't it true that you wouldn't let a lot of unhealthy drinks and food into the house?
Yes.
You thought that kids didn't need to be drinking energy drinks or coffee, isn't that right?
Yes, it's very important for kids to be raised with a healthy mindset so they know what to consume when they are older.
One of those drinks you didn't allow in the house was lemonade.
Yes.
But you and Rory argued about this lemonade, didn't you?
Yes, after meeting Sam, he started to drink a lot of it, and I just could see that it wasn't healthy.
Let me redirect you to the question. The question was, one of the drinks you didn't allow in the house was lemonade. Is that a yes?
Yes.
Rory would be up all hours of the night after drinking it, right?
Yes.
You noticed some lemonade cans in the recycling bin,
Yes.
so you confronted Rory about it,
I did.
and he told you to mind your own business. Is that right?
Yes.
Was that the first time he'd ever talked back to you?
Yes. After meeting Sam, he just seemed like he changed, like in a negative way.
Is that a yes?
Repeat the question, please.
Was that the first time he'd ever talked back to you?
Yes.
Let's talk about your relationship with Sam. You have always had a bad feeling about Sam, is that correct?
Yes.
You felt Sam was a bad influence on Rory?
He was. Every single time Rory would come back from hanging out with Sam, he started to get more and more disrespectful.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
You would blame Sam for Rory's attitude change, yes or no?
Yes.
The two of them would talk excitedly about things they were doing for videos.
Yes.
They would laugh and scream like children in Rory's room.
Yes, and they would just neglect all responsibilities that they had.
And you hated the fact that Rory was acting like a little kid, didn't you?
Yes, they were supposed to be growing up and maturing and becoming an adult.
Yes or no? It's your belief that Sam made Rory do these various challenges.
Objection, Your Honor. The counsel is badgering the witness.
Counsel?
Your Honor, I'm simply asking a yes or no question. I'm not badgering the witness in any way.
All right, I am going to overrule the objection. This cross is quite vigorous, there's no doubt about that. And given that it is cross-examination and we are dealing with a very crucial witness in this matter, I'm going to allow counsel to be a bit aggressive. I don't find that she's crossed the line into badgering, and the objection is overruled.
I'll re-ask the question for you. Yes or no? It's your belief that Sam made Rory do these various challenges.
Yes.
Rory played all kinds of sports growing up, like soccer and basketball. Is that right?
Yes.
But during his sophomore year, he began to change.
Yes.
He didn't have as much stamina as before.
Yes.
And he couldn't or wouldn't run as far as before.
Yes.
The weekend prior to Rory's passing, you noticed a few dozen cans of lemonade.
Yes.
This time they were on top of the recycling bin.
Yes.
You noticed that Rory had gained some weight, didn't you?
1 minute.
Yes, and it wasn't peculiar to me because he stopped doing his usual active behaviors, and he was consuming more of a sugary drink.
So that's a yes.
Yes.
And his skin looked puffy.
Yes.
Based on these behavioral and physical changes, did you consider taking Rory to the doctor?
No, because when someone stops acting, stop being active and stops doing their sports, it's not really out of the norm for their body to start changing in result of that.
Is that enough?
Wait, what was the question?
Based on these physical and behavioral changes, did you consider taking Rory to a doctor?
No, because nothing was out of the ordinary.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Very good. Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please be seated. State your name and spell your last name.
Logan Huntsberger, Huntzberger.
Good afternoon, Ms. Huntsberger. What is your relationship with Rory?
We've been childhood friends.
And how long have you known him?
I've known Rory since elementary school.
Can you describe what it was like to be friends with him back then?
Back then, Rory and I, we would always do everything together. We were practically inseparable. We would swim together and do all kinds of sports together.
That's great. Were you still friends with him up until his death?
Yes.
And why did your friendship change in high school?
In high school, I had to move schools, and thus we became less close. However, even though we talked less, we still met each other regularly since we lived in the same neighborhood.
I see. And how did you notice Rory changing as he entered high school?
I noticed that Rory began to argue with Dylan more. He also quit a lot of his physical activities and began hanging out with a new group of friends. seemed to be dealing with body changes.
And what was his relationship with Sam like?
Sam and Rory always filmed videos together, and it always seemed like Rory was being taken advantage of.
That makes a lot of sense. Could you describe the videos that Sam had Rory participate in?
Yeah, Sam and Rory would film videos, and these videos always seemed to be at the expense of Rory's well-being. He was always made the butt end of the joke.
Could you describe a specific example?
One time, I was shown the penny challenge by
Objection, hearsay.
Your Honor,
Go ahead, counsel, I'll hear you.
Your Honor, this witness directly saw the video from somebody's phone.
Okay, counsel, I'll hear you.
Your Honor, given that as opposing counsel stated that the witness was shown the video from somebody else's phone, and given the fact that the video has not been submitted for evidence, the reference of the challenge would require us to it would fall under hearsay.
All right, would you please repeat the original question for me?
Could you describe one of these videos?
Okay, so it's my understanding that the witness is about to testify to what she has observed, and that is not hearsay. I'm going to overrule the objection. If it turns out that the testimony is not what I expect it to be, I may reconsider and direct the jurors to disregard the testimony. But at this point, it does not appear that it calls for hearsay, and I'm going to overrule the objection. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Could you describe one of these videos?
Yes, I was shown by a student of mine that it was of the penny challenge, and I heard in the video Sam's laugh, and I saw Rory's phone being set on fire.
And were you positive that it was Rory in the video?
Yes, although I didn't see his face clearly, I still knew that it was Rory.
Objection, speculation. Given that the witness just stated that she never saw the individual's face, that the answer is speculative in nature.
All right, counsel.
Your Honor, the witness knows exactly what she thinks about the video, and she knows that she is positive about her opinion.
Okay, so I hold that, again, based on what I've heard so far, I hold that the objection goes to the weight, not the admissibility of the evidence, that ultimately the question of her credibility and did she truly see and hear what she believes she saw and heard will be a question for the jury. If she begins to wander into the realm of speculation, we will stop the testimony and potentially instruct the jury to disregard. But at this point, the objection is overruled. You repeat the question again if you wish.
Thank you. Were you positive that it was Rory in the video?
Yes, even though I didn't see the face clearly, I knew that it was filmed locally, and I could recognize his features and just clothing in general, and I could recognize my childhood friend anywhere.
That's rough for Rory. And when did Rory begin his friendship with Sam?
Sophomore year of high school.
Did you interact with Rory on July 6, 2020, the summer of his junior year?
Yes.
And where did you meet him?
I met him in the front of our houses.
What was his condition like?
He was sweating a lot, which was odd since Dylan always kept the house really cold.
I see. And what did you two talk about?
We planned to meet at the park, and I would pick him up at around 4:30, and then we would go get dinner together.
And when did you see Rory again on that day?
I was at 4:30 at the park.
And what did you see at the park?
When I pulled up at the park, I saw Rory was doing a lot of jumping jacks, and before that he had drank a lot of slaminade. And after the jumping jacks, I believe he started running and then he collapsed. And I sprinted over and called 911.
What compelled you to call 911?
He was unresponsive. No matter how much I called him, he just never woke up.
Then what was Sam doing after Rory collapsed?
He was laughing and on his phone.
Did he do anything else when the ambulance came?
No.
Thank you, Ms. Hunsberger. That'll be all, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. Cross-examination.
I'm truly sorry for the loss of your friend. You and Roy Solano were best friends growing up, isn't that right?
Yes.
But your relationship changed after middle school, correct?
Yes, after middle school, I had to change high schools, and then even though we didn't see each other as much, we still hung out a lot in the neighborhood.
So you didn't see each other as much as you entered high school, correct?
Yeah.
And in fact, you saw even less of Rory as you entered your junior years, correct?
I saw him less since we weren't at the same school, but we still met up regularly, and I always visited him at his work at the convenience.
However, in your witness statement, isn't it true that you stated that you, quote, didn't hang out much at all?
We didn't deliberately hang out much, but since we lived in the same neighborhood, we would still meet each other occasionally.
Isn't it true that you believe Sam Marina loves attention?
He seemed like one of those, what do you call it, like social media addicted kids.
As you've alluded to, you believed that she was obsessed with social media,
Yes.
and you believed that Rory was being pushed too far by Sam, correct?
Yes.
And it is your further belief that Rory would still be here if not for Sam, isn't that right?
I think that if Sam hadn't made him do the challenge that day, Rory's death could have been prevented, yes.
On the morning of July 6th, didn't you bump into Rory outside of your houses?
Correct.
And you noticed that he was carrying out a trash can overflowing with laminate?
Yes.
He seemed to be struggling with the heat, isn't that right?
Yes.
And you remarked in your witness statement that that was odd because his grandmother, as you alluded to as well in your direct examination, typically kept the house at a freezing temperature. Isn't that right?
Yeah, it was cool.
When you saw Rory in an unusual physical condition, did you consider contacting his grandparent?
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance?
Counsel?
Your Honor, I'm establishing what the witness did in response to Rory's declining health.
And how is that relevant to the issues in this matter? How is this witness's action or inaction relevant?
It goes to show the inaction by all parties in this case, and would go to show the difficulties, if you will, in recognizing those signs.
All right. I'm gonna overrule the objection. I'm giving counsel some leeway clearly in this matter, but I'm gonna allow him to explore it. The objection is overruled.
I'll re-ask my question. Based on these physical changes, did you consider contacting his grandparent?
Although he was sweating unusually, I don't think it was enough for me to really. I noticed it, and he seemed much. It was unusual, however, I don't think it was enough for me to call to him.
Would it be accurate to say that you made the 911 call?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach with Exhibit B?
You may.
The B4?
You may.
All right. In your direct examination, you stated that you arrived at the scene at 4:30, correct? Do you recognize this document? My apologies, this is Exhibit E. Do you recognize this document?
Yes.
Could you read the date and time information here?
July 6th, 3:44 p.m., Metropolitan New Jersey Crossing.
Thank you. Were you aware that Rory had hypertrophic obstructive cardiomyopathy?
No, I was.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Very good. Can you redirect, counsel?
No, Your Honor.
Whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please be seated. State your name and spell your last name.
My name is Dr. Alex Schwartz, SCHWARTZ.
Good afternoon, Dr. Schwartz. What is your current occupation?
I'm currently a researcher in the cardiology department of Metropolitan Medical Center.
And how long have you been working there?
I've worked there for 5 years.
What kind of studies have you been doing?
We conduct studies on how the ingestion of energy drinks affects the body, but specifically focusing on their caffeine content and the warnings that are issued by the manufacturers.
What qualifies you to do these studies?
I'm a 2015 graduate of Metropolitan Medical School. I'm a board-certified cardiologist, and I also have a bachelor's and master's degree in nutritional science.
Your honors, I ask now that Dr. Schwartz be qualified as an expert cardiologist.
Any objection?
None, Your Honor, as is so stipulated.
Very good. The doctor is so recognized. Counsel, please proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. And why are you participating in this case?
I'm participating in this case to opine on the role of slaminate as a catalyst in the death of Rory Salerno.
Can you tell us what HOCM is?
Yes, HOCM stands for hypertrophic obstructive cardiomyopathy, which is a heart condition in which the ventricular walls of the heart are thickened, meaning that there is less space in the ventricles for them to fill with blood, making it difficult for the individual to pump blood to the rest of the body.
I see. And what is extreme dehydration?
Extreme dehydration is a condition that leads an individual to lose consciousness due to lack of blood flow to the brain.
And does this only happen to people with HOCM?
No, healthy people can suffer from extreme dehydration depending on what other factors are involved.
And how can the effects be worse for someone with HOCM?
Someone with HOCM already has difficulty pumping blood to the rest of the body, including the brain, so they're predisposed to heart complications like extreme dehydration.
Did Rory have HOCM?
Yes, after reviewing the post-mortem scans, it was evident that Rory's ventricular walls were thickened as opposed to those of a normal teenager, which is consistent with an HOCM diagnosis.
Then why did no one know about his condition before his death?
It's common for teenagers to go undiagnosed.
Can slaminate make the effects of HOCM more dangerous?
Yes, someone with HOCM already has an abnormally fast heart rate. Slaminate contains a lot of caffeine and very little electrolytes or salt. The caffeine accelerates the heart rate even more, which makes them susceptible to several heart complications.
Now, did Rory experience extreme dehydration before his death?
Yes,
How did this extreme dehydration lead to his death?
as the extreme dehydration condition worsened and his heart function declined, sudden cardiac death was the result.
Could you provide more detail on this process?
Yes, the elevated heart rate caused by the caffeine exhausted the heart, which leads to a buildup of lactic acid in the muscles and tissues that can't be expelled from the body. This exhausts the heart even more, which means that the heart is impaired in its function and isn't able to adequately supply blood flow and oxygen to the rest of the body. And there's also stress put on the cardiac vessels, which leads to cardiac arrest.
I see. And what was the role of slaminate in Rory's death?
Even though his HOCM condition, along with the other factors of the day, make him predisposed to suffer from heart complications, it was the slaminate that exacerbated the condition enough to lead to his death. I can say with a reasonable degree of medical certainty that Rory would not have died without the ingestion of slaminate.
Thank you so much, Dr. Alex Schwartz. That will be all, Your Honor.
Very good, thank you. Cross-examination?
You're a graduate of Metropolitan Medical School, isn't that right?
Yes,
Class of 2015?
yes,
So at the time you were hired to testify, you've been in the field for 5 years?
yes,
To reach your conclusions, didn't you rely on both post-mortem tests ordered by others and your reading of Dr. Scott's report?
yes,
And you did not examine the body?
no,
And you did not conduct tests on the body?
no.
Did you request tests be conducted?
No, the tests that were done by others were adequate information.
What specific tests did you rely on to make those determinations?
There were scans of his heart which showed that they were thickened. The ventricular walls of his heart were thick.
Let's talk about hypertrophic obstructive cardiomyopathy. Sometimes an active person has this condition but shows no signs of it, isn't that right?
Yes.
Even some professional athletes have fainted due to decrease in blood flow to the brain brought on by the condition.
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor. This is not a correct explanation of what is said in Dr. Schwartz's statement.
Well, I'm inclined to overrule the objection because she already answered the question and she answered yes. So I will hear you further if you wish.
Your Honor, the witness said that it is normal for people without HOCM to experience extreme dehydration, but that does not mean that it is normal for people to experience extreme dehydration from HOCM, as not everyone has HOCM.
All right, so I am going to overrule the objection. Obviously, this is a conversation that we're having at sidebar out of the earshot of the jurors. But counsel, I'm afraid your issue may be with your witness as opposed to the question. Your objection is overruled.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
I'll re-ask my question, just the jury, for clarity's sake.
No, counsel. We've already we already had the question and the answer. She clearly answered in front of the jury. Please ask the next question.
Understood. And it's not uncommon for teenagers to go undiagnosed, correct?
No, it's not uncommon.
You do agree, of course, that Rory had HOCM,
Yes.
but that diagnosis only occurred after he died?
Yes.
Have you reviewed all the witness statements in this case?
No, I can't say that.
Are you aware that you were stipulated as having done so?
Yes, I guess I've overviewed that.
Based on your reading of Dylan Salerno's witness statement, would you agree that that the plaintiff was not aware that Rory had HOCM?
No, they were not aware.
And would you agree that no one was aware that Rory had HOCM?
No. No one was aware.
And that no one would include the defendant, correct?
Yes.
There were multiple contributing factors to Rory's death, correct?
Yes.
One of which was the performing of physical activity in the heat. Is that right?
Yes, however, I would say that other factors, including this lemonade, outweigh that factor.
But a contributing factor was the, no matter its gravity, was the performing of physical activity in the heat.
Yes, that's correct.
And the second factor was Rory's undiagnosed HOCM, correct?
Yes.
And the final factor was the inappropriate ingestion of slaminate, correct?
Yes.
Because slaminate is high in caffeine,
Yes.
and this caffeine content may cause an elevated heart rate, isn't that right?
Yes.
And slaminate may cause an electrolyte imbalance.
Yes.
Would you say that someone who did not drink the slaminate would have died from the events of July 6th?
No.
Would you say that someone who did not have HOCM would have died from the events of the slaminate challenge?
I would say that it's possible because this lemonade was misused and used contrary to the manufacturer's warning.
Someone with HOCM may already have a dangerously fast heart rate, isn't that right?
Yes, that's correct.
And someone with HOCM who misuses slaminate may be predisposed to suffer from heat stroke, heat exhaustion, and extreme dehydration.
Yes, that's correct.
Would you agree that slaminate provided a label warning on its products?
Yes, it did.
Your Honor, may I mark Exhibit D as D5?
All right, exhibit D5, so marked.
All right.
You may approach the witness.
Do you recognize this document as that warning label?
Yes.
It states that slaminate is high in caffeine and should be used in moderation.
Yes.
Does it state anything more specific about any of the following?
No.
Heat stroke, extreme dehydration, elevated heart rate, and heat exhaustion.
No, it doesn't.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Very good, thank you, counsel. Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Watch your step. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please be seated. State your name and spell your last name.
Bailey Patel, P-A-T-E-L.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a social media influencer.
You can make a living that way?
Absolutely. I make so much money that I actually dropped out of college and I have no plans of returning.
When did you first start to work as an influencer?
High school, I believe I signed my first contract when I was a sophomore.
What did that contract entail?
I would bring my friends to the different branches of a local pizzeria that we had, and we just film ourselves having a good time.
Did the pizza contract pay well?
Not really. I got a little spending money, but it was the other videos that brought me big money.
What other videos?
I got contracts to promote apparel, candy bars, even cars. I became really good at making the products look incredible, which led to more clicks and more money.
Did you ever get involved in videos where young people would do dangerous activities?
I made some challenge videos like everyone else, but I definitely made it a point not to do anything too crazy. It was important to me to be respectable.
What do you mean by respectable?
It was important to me to have integrity. I would never endorse a product that I didn't believe in, and although I may have approached the line on risky behavior, I tried to never put my friends in any real danger.
How much money have you made making these videos?
I've made a few thousand.
How did you feel about this lemonade energy drink?
I loved it. It really wasn't about the energy for me. I just really liked the taste of it. It made it easy for me to endorse the product and make more videos with Lemonade.
What kind of videos did you make with lemonade?
I actually created the Slam's Lemonade Challenge in either late 2019 or early 2020. I had some friends down Lemonade and then do some sort of outrageous stunt like ride a unicycle or hit golf balls with the Happy Gilmore baseball swing.
Were you the only person doing these videos?
I know Sam made some videos with the challenge, and there were literally hundreds of videos where people copied my challenge as well.
Did you think that the Slam's Lemonade Challenge might have been dangerous?
No, I never
Objection,
had-
Your Honor, this is speculation.
Your Honor, according to Rule 401A, an opinion is allowed if it goes towards the state of the mind of the witness, and it does considering she did make the challenge herself.
I agree. I'll allow the question.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I'll repeat the question for you. Did you think that the Slam's Lemonade Challenge might have been dangerous?
No, I never had a problem with the challenge, and the hundreds of videos I saw online never had a problem with it either. I only stopped doing the challenge once I got the email from the company.
Your Honor, may I enter Exhibit E into evidence as D6?
Okay.
May I approach with Exhibit E, labeled D6 for identification? Do you recognize this document?
Yes, it's the email I just mentioned.
Can you read the two sentences starting with Good Drink Beverage Company?
Good Drink Beverage Company does not endorse nor does it condone this challenge. It is recommended that our influencers stop this challenge immediately.
Does this email explain why they were issuing the recommendation?
No, I don't see that anywhere.
What, if anything, did you do as a result of the email?
I stopped doing the challenge. I wanted to maintain a good relationship with the company.
Do you know San Marino?
Yes, she is a friend of mine who I gave advice to about becoming a social media influencer. You could say I was kind of like a mentor to Sam.
Where were you on July 6th, 2020?
I met up with Sam at Rock Harris Park that day around noon.
Why?
I wanted to give her the new 6-pack of the Lemonade XL I had just received from the company.
Did you see Rory doing the challenge we heard about earlier?
No, but I did bump into him in the parking lot.
When you saw Rory, how would you describe him?
He did not look well, and there was sweat running down his face, and I think at one point I saw him bend over with his hands on his knees just from walking across the parking lot.
Did you speak to him?
Yes, of course, I asked him if he was okay.
And how did he respond?
He just shrugged and walked over to where Sam was hanging out.
Were you aware that Rory had a pre-existing medical condition?
No, I had no clue. I only heard about it after
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Cross?
Good afternoon, Ms. Patel. Do you agree that you were a mentor to Sam Arena?
I was. I gave Sam a lot of advice with social media.
Isn't it true that in your early social media career, you had Sam in some of your videos?
I did, yes.
And isn't it true that you could tell Rory loved the attention?
Rory did like the attention, as well as Sam, which is what came with being a social media influencer.
And you made the Slam to Slaminate challenge, correct?
I did, yes.
Isn't it true that you had your friends do outrageous stunts, such as riding a unicycle?
The stunts were outrageous, but they never really crossed the line.
Do you agree that the more outrageous your videos were, the more likes and clicks your videos would get?
Yes, that's what I noticed.
And isn't it true that in the Slaminate email, with Sam included in it, it advised influencers to stop doing the challenge?
It recommended it, yes.
And didn't this email come directly after a period of time where children were doing unsafe activities with this challenge?
Yes, very young children were doing the challenge unadvised, so we got the recommendation to stop.
And isn't it true that in your statement you said that Sam read these emails since you never saw him do another video from this challenge?
I assumed...
Objection, Your Honor. The question calls for speculation.
Counsel?
Your Honor, the question asks if the witness said this in her statement, not necessarily if she truly believes this.
Your Honor, if I may, the question is asking for the witness on the stand to testify to see as if someone else read the email, and that is not only hearsay, but is calling for speculation on behalf of the witness.
I agree. I'll sustain the objection. Ask another question.
Do you confirm that Rory did not look good on July 6th?
Yes, it was a very hot day, but it seemed like Rory was feeling it a bit more than I was.
Can you confirm that Rory was sweating excessively
Yes,
and that he was bent over
he was, yes.
and that his hands were on his knees?
That's what I remember.
And in your statement, you stated that if you had known about his heart condition, you would have stopped him in the parking lot?
I would have, but neither I nor anyone else knew about it.
Okay, thank you. That will be all, Your Honor.
Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. I approach with Exhibit E, labeled D6 for identification.
You may.
Do you recognize this document?
I do.
Does it explain anywhere in the email why they were issuing this recommendation?
No, it doesn't.
Thank you.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please be seated. State your name and spell your last name.
Dr. Jordan Scott, S-C-O-T-T. What do you do for a living?
I'm a licensed cardiologist. I currently work as a consultant with the Cardiologist Consultants of Metropolitan.
And where did you receive your medical training?
I received my doctorate at the Metropolitan University Medical School, specializing in cardiology, and completed my residency at the Metropolitan University Hospital.
Where else have you worked?
I've also worked as a concierge doctor on the Hamptons on Long Island.
What is a concierge doctor?
Basically, you're an on-call physician for those who can afford to pay a monthly fee.
Why are you here tonight?
I'm testifying about the cause of death of Rory Salerno. I'm stipulated as an expert in the field of cardiology.
Do you have any sort of experience with these investigations?
Yes, I've been involved in multiple investigations in the past. Admittedly, though, this is the first time I've been the lead investigator.
And how did you conduct your investigation?
I reviewed all medical records, witness statements, and exhibits.
What did that investigation conclude?
Rory Salerno had undiagnosed hypertrophic obstructive cardiomyopathy, and this condition resulted in sudden cardiac death.
Could you explain to the jury in layman's terms what hypertrophic obstructive cardiomyopathy is?
Yes, Hypertrophic obstructive cardiomyopathy, or HOCM, involves a hardening or thickening of the heart's left ventricle wall. Due to this thickening, the heart does not receive all the blood necessary for its basic needs.
And what could happen to a person as a result?
It can manifest in a number of ways, including arrhythmia, shortness of breath, bloating, stroke, and what ultimately happened to Mr. Salerno, sudden cardiac death.
Does someone with this condition typically know that they have it?
I'm afraid not. Oftentimes, symptoms aren't seen until after a catastrophic event. If there are symptoms, it would be chest pain, difficulty breathing, or rapid pulse.
And what does a person who's presenting with these symptoms with HOCM typically think is wrong with them?
Well, some are proactive and they'll seek a medical opinion, but in most cases, they'll conclude that they're simply out of shape or that they have another condition like asthma.
Is this a common disease?
No, it strikes only 1 in 500 people. However, it is hereditary.
Have you reviewed all the witness statements in this case?
I have.
Based on your reading of Dylan Salerno's witness statement, what do you know about Rory's family medical history?
Rory Salerno's father was a seemingly healthy U.S. Marine who suddenly collapsed and died. We know that HOCM is hereditary and that Rory had it, so there's a very good chance that his father had it as well.
Now, are there any tests that can be conducted to determine whether a person, maybe out of self-interest, perhaps like I, had this condition?
Yes, there are an array of tests available. You could do an electrocardiogram or an MRI to figure out if you have HOCM.
And when should this be conducted?
If they're experiencing any of the classic symptoms of HOCM, or if they know that it runs in their family, I would advise getting tested.
Based on your medical expertise, was Rory exhibiting the classic signs of HOCM prior to his death?
Clearly. Rory showed a decline in stamina, signs of fatigue, shortness of breath, sweating, and noticeable bloating. It's tragic his condition was undiagnosed for so long.
Did you consider whether the ingestion of slaminate could have played a role in his death?
I considered it, and because of the media narrative, I have to admit I felt some pressure to blame the death on the drink initially. But once I looked at all the information available, I concluded that that was not the case.
I see. Could Rory's death be due to the ingestion of caffeine?
After reviewing all the information available, I have to conclude that the answer is no.
In your medical expertise, what was the proximate cause of Rory's death?
With a reasonable degree of medical certainty, the proximate cause of Rory Salerno's death was hypertrophic obstructive cardiomyopathy.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Ross?
You were first contacted by Sam Morena's lawyers in early November 2020 in order to investigate the cause of death of Rory Salerno, correct?
Yes, that was when I was contacted.
And isn't it true that this is the first case in which you have acted as lead?
Yes, I've been involved in multiple investigations in the past. I felt it was time that I could step up given my previous experience.
Now, Rory's cause of death was sudden cardiac arrest, correct?
Sudden cardiac death, yes, which involves the stopping of the heart, so it would be cardiac arrest.
And Rory had a condition called hypertrophic obstructive cardiomyopathy, correct?
Yes, I diagnosed him, and so did the other doctor, Dr. Alex Shorts, also agreed with my diagnosis.
And one of the ways this condition manifests itself is through sudden cardiac arrest. Isn't that correct?
Yes, that is a possibility given with HOCM.
And isn't it true that the signs of sudden cardiac arrest occurring commonly include chest pains, difficulty breathing, or tachycardia?
Yes, those are possible symptoms of ongoing sudden cardiac death.
And Rory displayed these classic signs and symptoms, correct?
Yes, this is all the symptoms he displayed before he died.
Additionally, isn't it true that the classic symptoms of HOCM include heart arrhythmias, shortness of breath, bloating, or stroke?
Yes, these are all also symptoms of HOCM.
Did Rory display these signs or symptoms of HOCM just prior to their death?
Yes, he displayed all these symptoms.
Now, you mentioned that you believe slaminate had no role in Rory's death, correct?
Yes, I don't believe that there was enough time frame for the caffeine to affect the heart.
But isn't it also true that slaminate contains a lot of caffeine and very little electrolytes or salt?
Yes, I don't believe this caffeine had an effect on the heart or any of his other organs by the time he collapsed.
And isn't it true that in your testimony you mentioned that the weather conditions of the day were extremely hot?
Yes, that is how others have testified.
And you mentioned that it was the heat combined with the excessive exercise that led to Rory's death?
Yes, the exercise combined with his HOCM, that is what led to his death.
Additionally, both the heat and Rory's excessive sweating are visible physical signs that an average individual would be able to notice, correct?
Could you please repeat that?
Rory's sweating and incredible heat of the day are physical or visible signs that the average person would be able to notice, correct?
Objection, compound question. Additionally, if the opposing counsel could move, as I cannot see my witness.
I can do that, Your Honor. I do not believe my question was compound, as it is simply asking, are these physical or visible signs that a person would be able to notice?
I'm going to sustain the objection. Rephrase your question.
Yes, Your Honor. Was the heat of the day a sign that something that an individual would be able to notice?
Yes, people would be able to notice the heat of the day, and they did.
And was Rory sweating a visible sign that someone would be able to see?
Yes, people have testified that Rory was sweating unusually.
Now, additionally, you mentioned that an MRI or an autopsy would be able to detect HOCM, correct?
Oh, I mentioned an MRI or an electrocardiogram.
My apologies, an electrocardiogram. But isn't it true that these medical procedures are relatively expensive?
I mean, all medical procedures tend to be fairly expensive, but that varies per person. There can be other different medical insurances depending on the person.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
Your Honor.
None, Your Honor.
Thank you. You're excused.
The defense calls Sam Marina to the stand.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Please be seated. State your name and spell your last name.
Sam Marina, A-R-E-N-A.
Do you know why you're here today?
Yes, the plaintiff is accusing me of negligence in the death of my friend, Rory Salerno.
How do you know Rory?
We met at the end of our sophomore year in high school through computer club. Neither of us were really that into computers, but we hit it off anyways.
Can you describe your relationship with Rory?
Of course. We were best friends, and I genuinely liked him. We got along so well, and I think the reason for that is because neither of us really had a lot of friends to begin with.
Wait, so if you weren't into computers, why did you join the computer club?
I needed to know the basics of computers in order to be successful at my job because I'm a social media influencer.
And what does that job entail?
I post videos to a social media site called Filmy with the intent of gaining a lot of viewers and going viral. The more viewers, the more money I make.
What kind of videos do you make?
My typical videos are about gaming, food reviews, unboxings, fails, and pranks.
What are fails?
These are videos where something goes wrong, so it could be a stunt that completely misses the target or an attempted prank that blows up in the prankster's face.
Was Rory ever involved in the making of these videos?
Frequently, yes. He and I made a lot of challenge videos, and most of the time Rory was on camera, but sometimes he turned the tables on me and made me look like a fool.
How much money have you made creating these videos?
I'm not really sure about the total amount of money I've made, but I know that during the early days of the pandemic, when we were all stuck inside, I was making about $5,000 a month, getting 500,000 views on some of my videos.
Can you explain how this makes money?
Sure. Filmy runs ads before and during the video, and we split the revenue. I also make money via product placement.
What do you mean by product placement?
These are videos that feature a product, so it's not exactly an ad, but it functions like one. Some of the products I featured before are sneakers, eyeglasses, and slim mini drinks.
We're going to shift now to July 2020. What, if anything, can you briefly recall about the days leading up to July 6th?
The weekend immediately prior, Rory and I had hung out with a large group of our friends, and I was able to get us a lot of lemonade.
Who drank this lemonade that weekend?
I personally didn't drink any of it because I don't care for the taste, but I know Rory had some, just like he did on that awful day.
Which day was that?
July 6, 2020, when Rory collapsed and ultimately died at Loch Harrison Park.
When did you first see Rory on that day?
When he arrived at the park at 2 p.m.
Can you describe the weather conditions that day?
It was hot, so hot that we talked about changing our plans.
Did your plans change?
Yes, my friends decided to go back to the apartment to hang out in the air conditioning, but I decided to stay with Rory at the park because he decided to meet a friend later that weekend.
What did you guys do in the park?
We decided to make a video, and I'm pretty sure it was Rory who pushed to do the challenge video.
What's a challenge video?
There are different kinds, but the one that's relevant here is when someone eats or drinks something really quickly and then does something funny to see how their body would react. It's like the dizzy bat race they do before baseball games.
What did the challenge on July 6th entail?
Rory was going to drink 3 Slaminades really quickly, do some jumping jacks, and then do a sprint right after.
Your Honor, may I approach with Exhibit D, labeled D5 rectification?
You may.
Do you recognize this document?
I do. As you said, it's a Slaminade label.
Can you read the label to the court?
Slaminade is high in caffeine and should be used in moderation. Not recommended for pregnant women and children.
Does this label define what it means by moderation?
No, it does not.
Does this label explain what might happen if not used in moderation?
No.
Thank you. Were you being paid by Slaminade to make these videos?
Slaminade didn't pay us to make specific videos, but if we feature their product, we get about $50 for every 1,000 views.
What happened during the challenge on July 6th?
Rory drank the first 2 cans really quickly, but it took him a little longer to drink the third. I was really concerned for him, and I think I stopped filming to check if he was okay, but he shrugged me off.
What did you do after you finished the third can?
He started doing jumping jacks, but he slowed down as he went.
What was your reaction to his slowing down?
Again, I was concerned, and I asked him a couple of times if he was okay.
What happened next?
He turned as if he was going to run towards the slab, but then he immediately collapsed.
And what happened following that?
I have to admit, my first reaction to this was to laugh because I didn't understand the gravity of the situation, and I thought it was just dizziness.
Was Rory okay?
No, it turns out he had a medical condition, but I had no idea.
Would you have done this challenge had you known Rory had a pre-existing medical condition?
Of course not. Rory was the kind of friend I'd always been searching for, and I miss him every day.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Good evening, Miss Arena. You are currently living on your own, correct?
That is correct. My parents left at the end of my junior year in high school, back to California.
And you are responsible for most of your own expenses, correct?
My parents are responsible for my apartment and expenses, but I'm responsible for everything else.
And your sponsorships and ad revenue are your main sources of income, correct?
That is correct, as I'm a social media influencer.
Now, you met Rory at the end of your sophomore year in computer club, correct?
That is correct.
And at the time, you did not have any friends, correct?
I guess you could say that. I did start social media influencing as a way to make friends, so I would say it garnered a decent amount by the time I was in computer club.
And isn't it true that your lack of friends did not bother you because you had started making a lot of money, as you stated in your statement?
That is what I said.
Now, you and Rory often made videos together, correct?
That is correct. We often made challenge videos with each other.
Did the content of these videos ever involve pranks or challenges?
Yes, it did.
Now, let's move on to the events of July 6, 2020. In the afternoon of July 6th, were you at Loch Harris Park with Bailey Patel?
I was.
And was Rory there?
Rory arrived just after 2 p.m.
Now, how often had you seen Rory in the days or weeks leading up to July 6th?
The weekend immediately before the event, Rory and I were hanging out with a large group of our friends.
And isn't it true that something you and Rory often did together was drink lemonade?
We often made videos that involved Slaminade, but as I said in my direct examination, I personally didn't drink Slaminade.
Now, on July 6th, the weather was incredibly hot, correct?
That is correct. I vividly remember sweating a lot that day because it was very hot.
Additionally, Rory brought a 6-pack can of regular Slaminade with them from work, correct?
That is correct.
And the Slaminade that Rory brought with them wasn't used for the Slam the Slaminade challenge conducted, correct?
That is also correct.
And you had just received a pack of Slaminade XL from Bailey Patel, correct? Yes, she gave them to me as she was leaving the park.
But the Slimonade XL was used for the challenge instead of the regular Slimonade that Rory brought, correct?
Yes, we did use Lemonade XL.
Now, in a previous challenge, you filmed a video where Rory jumped out of the passenger seat of your car, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance?
Your Honor, this establishes foundation for future questions and will establish the character of the witness.
Your Honor, the previous video has no relevance towards the current case and the question at hand.
This is cross-examination. The defense is going to be given a little leeway to develop the question further. So I'm going to overrule the objection.
Thank you, Your Honor. May I re-ask the question?
Please.
Now, in a previous challenge, you filmed a video where Rory jumped out of the passenger seat of your car, correct?
Yes, and then he danced to a song.
And in this challenge, your car was moving, correct?
That is not correct. I did not state that in my statement.
Your Honor, may I label this as P1, the statement of Sam Moreno?
You may.
One moment. Could you please read from where I have pointed to the end of the paragraph?
A few weeks earlier, we had filmed a video where Rory jumped out of the passenger seat of my car and danced to that Drake song. It got a lot of views. I think a lot of people were thrilled when I drove off at the end of the video. Rory didn't seem to mind.
Thank you. Now, would you consider this challenge that you performed previously dangerous?
No, because in the witness statement, it wasn't explicitly stated that the car was moving. Rory just jumped out of the passenger seat and danced to the song.
But you did drive off afterward, correct?
Yes, but then I immediately came back after the pic came up.
And this video did gain a lot of views, correct?
Yes, it did.
Now, in the challenge conducted on July 6th, Rory was supposed to drink 3 cans of lemonade very quickly and then do jumping jacks, correct?
Yes, as well as a sprint right after.
But while Rory was performing these jumping jacks, they were slowing down, correct?
That is correct. I was really, really concerned for my friend.
And after Rory collapsed, isn't it true that you laughed?
As I said in my direct examination, my first reaction was laughter because I thought it was just dizziness, like in the dizzy bat race. I laughed as friends do, but in hindsight, I feel really bad for my reaction after I realized the gravity of the situation.
Now, when Logan turned Rory over, isn't it true that Rory was soaked in sweat?
Yes, it was horrible.
And you did not stop recording until after the ambulance was called, correct?
I stopped filming as soon as Logan called 911.
Also, isn't it true that you received an email from the CEO of Good Drink Beverage Company?
I did not know at the time that I had received such an email, but due to the trial proceedings, my attorney has showed me the email, so I can say that I did, but I did not know at the time.
And this email was sent to all influencers, correct?
Yes, it was.
And this email states that the company recommends all of its influencers immediately stop doing the Slam This Lemonade challenge.
I don't know because I don't have it right in front of me right now, so I can't confirm that.
Your Honor, may I show the witness this email that the defense has previously labeled?
You may.
Please review the email over here. Do you want me to read it? No, just review it silently, please.
me to re-ask the question now that you have reviewed the email. Isn't it true that the email states that the company recommends all of its influencers immediately stop performing the Slam This Lemonade challenge?
It does say that, but it never says anything about the challenge being particularly dangerous and doesn't give a reason.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor. How was Rory involved in the making of these fail videos we talked about earlier?
Normally, we would film the videos together. Most of the time, Rory was on camera, but sometimes I was on camera as well.
And going back to the video we heard earlier with the challenge where Rory was standing outside the car and dancing, was the car moving?
No, it wasn't.
And what happened after you drove off?
I immediately came back right after to pick Rory up.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
No recross, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, everyone. Defendant, we are ready for your summation.
Imagine how much more care, precaution, and vigilance you would take if you learned you had a hereditary heart disease. Personally, I would rush to the doctor, get a whole bunch of tests, and start on a health and diet regimen. I would get regular checkups, and if there's a medicine I could take to help control the issue, I'd be all over it. Rory Salerno never got that chance, never knowing a silent killer lurked inside his chest. Rory would have known about his condition if only the plaintiff had insisted on an autopsy when her son died. As you surely know, members of the U.S. Marine Corps are in incredible shape, and as a Marine, Joseph Salerno was no exception. But one day, he collapsed unexpectedly and died of unknown causes. As his mother, the plaintiff suffered her first unimaginable loss. Understand that this must have been a terrible shock, and that in such a moment, the grieving mother may not be thinking clearly. However, the plaintiff testified tonight that an autopsy had not been conducted, and if it had been, she did not know the result. If only she had insisted on that critical information. Regardless of the outcome in this case, the plaintiff lost a beloved grandchild, and she has our deepest condolences for a terrible tragedy. But compounding that tragedy is what was revealed by the evidence tonight, that it could have been prevented if only common sense precautions had been taken. In the spring of 2020, Rory Salerno's health steadily declined. After years of playing basketball and soccer, he suddenly quit those sports. He gained weight, his stamina decreased, and he started to appear, and I quote, puffy. We heard testimony about his shortness of breath, signs of fatigue, and significant sweating. Multiple witnesses in this case, on both sides of the case, testified to seeing those signs, but no one knew about his hereditary heart disease. If Rory's grandmother didn't have a clue, how could Sam possibly have known? Both medical witnesses in this case agree that Rory had hypertrophic obstructive cardiomyopathy, that no one was aware of the presence of this illness, and that he ultimately was a victim of sudden cardiac death. The plaintiff's medical witness did not conduct any examination on the body, did not conduct any tests on the body, and did not even request tests be conducted on the body. And the defense's medical expert stated that Rory would not have died without his ingestion of Slaminate. Let's be real about what happened here. Whatever you think about the social culture surrounding our social media today, millions of teens across the country sometimes engage in childish stunts. By comparison, the Slam This Lemonade challenge was relatively tame. Still, it is clear that had Sam known about Rory's health condition, she wouldn't have participated in the filming of a challenge that Rory pushed to do. Had Rory known about his condition, I'm sure he wouldn't have pushed to do it either. Let's take a closer look at Slaminate. The product has a warning label. Slaminate is high in caffeine and should be used in moderation. What does moderation mean? Is 1 bottle the maximum one should drink? 2? 3? How about that email from the CEO calling for the end to the Slaminate challenge? Just like the warning label, it's incredibly vague. Here are the key lines. Good Drink Beverage Company does not endorse, nor does it condone this challenge. It is recommended that our influencers stop this challenge immediately. The plaintiff would like you to believe that these vague warnings should have been enough for Sam to realize that this challenge could kill his friend. Sam's mentor and the creator of the challenge testified tonight that she had seen hundreds of similar videos that went off without a hitch, and that she saw had never had any problem with the challenge. There's some legalese that you'll have to wade through in this case. One of the key terms is foreseeability, that the natural and probable consequence of an act would be some injury. Consider the hundreds of times the video had been gone on without incident, the vagueness of the warnings from the company, and most critically, that no one knew Rory had that ticking time bomb in his chest. According to the law, in order for you to support the plaintiff's claim, you would have to make 3 determinations. First, that Sam had exclusive control of the instrumentality that caused Rory's death. If you believe that the proximate cause of death was HOCM, this would be an absurd finding. On the other hand, you may buy the plaintiff's argument about Slaminate. After all, Sam did give the drinks to Rory, but let's not deprive Rory of his agency here. He is the one who pushed for the challenge and made the decision to consume the 3 bottles. Second, that the circumstances were such that in the ordinary course of events, the incident would not have occurred if Sam had exercised reasonable care. In the ordinary course of events, 17-year-olds don't have heart disease. Third, that the plaintiff's actions or negligence did not contribute to the occurrence. We want to be sensitive here, but ask you to consider what the plaintiff did and did not do regarding the health of their grandchild. After all, you heard on the stand tonight that the plaintiff did not consider taking their grandchild to the doctor after seeing those physical changes. This case boils down to 3 key questions. First, was Rory's death foreseeable? Second, did Sam fail to exercise the care, precaution, and vigilance which an ordinarily prudent person would exercise under the same circumstances? And third, that Sam's actions were a substantial factor in the death. Each time, the answer is no. Sam here is being sued for an unforeseeable death that she did not cause. Sam's actions did not violate the appropriate standard of care, and the plaintiff's actions did contribute to the occurrence. As such, on the question of negligence, your answer should be a clear, resounding no. Thank you.
Your Honors, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, tonight, my co-counsel Alyssa Exu and I have presented to you a compelling case that clearly illustrates the negligence that the defendant, Sam Arena, has shown in this matter. The evidence we have presented to you shows that the defendant failed to take the necessary precautions and actions to ensure the safety of Rory Salerno, the grandchild of our client, Dylan Salerno. Allow me to remind you that Sam Arena is a 19-year-old content creator living on their own, and they depend on their sponsorships and ad deals from their videos for most of their revenue. Now, let's review the events that occurred on July 6, 2020. Rory Salerno arrived at Loch Harris Park with the intention of meeting Sam there. With him, he had brought a pack of regular Slaminate. Sam Arena was already at the park when Rory arrived and had just received a pack of Slaminate XL from Bailey Patel. The two were filming a video on the Slam the Slaminate challenge for Sam's channel. However, instead of using the packet of regular Slaminate that Rory had brought with them, they chose to use it was Sam who convinced Rory to use the Slaminate XL, even though they knew the health risks that were posed by the XL version. Even though the weather was extremely hot and Rory was sweating profusely, Sam continued to encourage Rory through the challenge and did not stop recording even after the ambulance was called. It was Logan Huntsberger who called the ambulance, and this makes one thing clear tonight, that Sam Arena engaged in negligent behavior, and that led to the death of Rory Salerno. Now, let us review tonight's testimony. First, you heard from the plaintiff, Dylan Salerno. Dylan Salerno is a hard-working individual who provided for Rory for most of their life. Tonight, she has testified that Sam had a negative impact on Rory. Rory was a sweet and active child with a bright future that Sam has now stolen from Rory due to their negligent behavior. Now, the defense may make it seem as if the plaintiff in this matter could have all been prevented with a simple autopsy of their son. However, as mentioned in the testimony of Jordan Scott, autopsies and other medical procedures are not cheap. They cost money. Mrs. Salerno already had to provide for a grandchild, and she had no reason to put herself through more mental and emotional struggles by performing this autopsy. Next, we heard from Logan Huntsberger, who testified to their first-hand experience at the park on July 6th. Logan testifies that even though there were clear physical signs that Rory was unwell, Sam continued recording and continued letting Rory do this challenge. And lastly, we heard from Dr. Alex Schwartz, who elaborated on the heart issue, hypertrophic obstructive cardiomyopathy that Rory had, and how the ingestion of Slaminate XL and caffeine affects the condition. With a reasonable degree of medical certainty, Dr. Schwartz testified that without the inappropriate ingestion of Slaminate in the short time frame followed by the extensive physical exercise in the heat, Rory would not have passed away. Now, let's move on to the defense witnesses. First, we've heard from Bailey Patel. Now, the defense has portrayed this narrative that Bailey is a responsible content creator and mentor to Sam Arena. Bailey Patel is the original creator of the Slam the Slaminate challenge, the same challenge that led to Rory's death. However, they stopped performing this challenge after they received the email from the Good Drink Beverage Company. And they also confirmed that Rory displayed clear visible signs that they were unwell. They testified that Rory was sweating profusely and had their hands on their knees. Bailey Patel was a reasonable person that could see that Rory was unwell. Anyone that could see that Rory was unwell would have stopped the challenge, as Sam clearly should have done. Bailey Patel may have been a mentor to Sam, but unlike their mentor, Sam continued performing the challenge even after receiving the email and seeing these clear, visible signs that Rory was unwell. Next, we heard from Jordan Scott. Now, the defense would love for you to believe that hypertrophic obstructive cardiomyopathy alone led to Rory's death. However, the plaintiff has shown through a preponderance of evidence how it was the lack of electrolytes and salt in Slaminate XL that led to extreme dehydration. This, combined with the excessive exercise and extreme heat of the day, eventually led to Rory's collapse. Rory had hypertrophic obstructive cardiomyopathy throughout their entire life, and they did not collapse. It was the excessive heat of the day, the lack of electrolytes and salt in Slaminate XL, and all of these factors combined with the excessive exercise that Rory had to undergo in the challenge that led to Rory's collapse and their death, all of which was supervised by the final witness and defendant, Sam Arena. Sam Arena, as the defense might want you to believe, as a responsible content creator, was not. It was the Slam the Slaminate challenge that was going up on Sam's channel that directly led to Rory's death. There were clear visible and physical signs that day, as many witnesses have testified to today. Rory was sweating profusely, and it was extremely hot that day. These alone should have been grounds for Sam to stop the challenge. As seen throughout the case, through the very clear, visible signs that Rory was unwell, the challenge should have been stopped immediately. The sweating and heat alone should have been clear grounds for Sam to stop the challenge. For Sam, this was all about making a profit on his Filmy account. But unfortunately, it cost Rory Salerno their life. Your Honors, members of the jury, it is imperative that you understand that it was Sam's negligent behavior in this matter that is what ultimately led to the untimely death of Rory Salerno. The emotional damage that this has caused my client, Dylan Salerno, is unforgivable, and Sam Arena must be brought to justice for their actions. Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, members of the jury.